go forward.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for inviting me again. The talk today will be about black and white, and I'll talk a little bit. The main problem I see when when I judge camera club competitions and or look on Facebook and look at other work in black and white, some of the problem is bad post-processing. But very often it's just the subject doesn't work for black and white. Not every picture works with black and white. So in the program today, I'll talk a little bit about black and white, when we want to use it. I'll talk about post-processing and really what black and white photography is good for. So why black and white? The first question is really for artistic expression. I know at least when I started with photography, it was pretty much the only feasible option. When I grew up, I started my photography when I was 10 years old. That's when I got my darkroom, and I could only at the time do black and white, and also that's all I could afford at that time. But now we can do color, we can do black and white at no additional costs. But really the reasons why we should do it is really if we want to show mood, nostalgia, drama, focus on shapes and textures, and really on visual elements, but not color, not let the color distract from what we really see in the subject or in the scene. We'll see examples of where it works or when we shouldn't use black and white. And often we'll use it when we just have poor color quality, either color cast or just the picture is very flat, very muddy colors, or noise looks bad in color images. Sometimes it looks like grain and actually creates mood with black and white. So again, we'll see examples. Considerations, and successful black and white images have one of more of the following: strong emotive subject. And as I said, it really works well for moody pictures to express emotion. And so if you have an emotive subject, often black and white works. It's great for portraits. It's great for some bad weather photographs. Drama, we can show drama in black and white. And I don't know if you remember from some of my judging, I like to break some of the rules, especially the ones that we hear frequently in camera clubs. I don't mind white sky. I don't mind solid blacks or solid whites, losing highlight and shadow details. If we create drama, if we create impact. We'll see it a lot in paintings that painters painted sections of the picture just in black or just in white without showing details. We'll use black and white when there are interesting shapes, lines, or textures that color will just distract from them. And if we have a wide tonal range, we can use black and white. And again, we'll look at some examples. Now, subject separation from the background is more difficult in black and white because we don't have the colors. And sometimes we don't have, that's why sometimes pictures don't lend themselves to black and white. Now, if we want to do black and white, sometimes we have to work with lighting or depth of field to separate the subject from the background. So if you know that you want to do black and white to create black and white images, sometimes you need to use tools during the photo shoot, or you can do some of it in post-processing, but you really want to make the subject stand out if colors are gone, and normally the color will make it stand out. Busy scenes with many colors don't usually work in black and white. There are exceptions, but often they don't. And I always shoot raw. I always shoot everything in color. I don't um, um, I don't shoot JPEGs in black and white because I do want to process the image. First, I want to see if it works well in black and white. I want to have full control over the dynamic range, over, I mean, I shoot raw 100% of the times, and I shoot in color. You can actually shoot black and white when you shoot in raw, but then you can turn it back to color. So it's only the way it will appear on your monitor and the way you move it into Lightroom or Camera Raw, but then you can put it back in color. You have full control. I expose for the brightest image without clipping the highlights, so I get the best data out of the camera. Then you can adjust and make it darker in post. When I say without clipping the highlights, there are exceptions. So for example, if you have the light source in the frame, you know, you're not going to try to make the sun shades of gray. You're not going to make even a light outside shade of gray. So you may let some areas, small areas, clip and be completely white. But you want, normally the way I like to shoot, not just for black and white, is have my histogram all the way to the right with no or minimal clipping. Any questions so far? By the way, if you want to talk, you can just hold the space bar down, not click it, just hold it down, and it will unmute you temporarily.
What do you mean by clipping?
So do you know how the histogram looks on your camera? So you want it to be as far to the right as possible, but you don't want it to go, you want it to come down, all the way down on the right-hand side. If at the end it goes into the wall, the right wall, it means that you are clipping and losing texture in the highlights. If for creative reasons you choose to do that, you want to have some white, that's okay. For example, sometimes, because I like to sometimes do sky replacement, and let's say my subject is darker than the sky, sometimes what I'll do, I'll expose for my subject, let's say it's a building, it's a mountain, whatever, I'll expose for that and make that look good. And it's good for me if the sky goes completely white, because then it's much easier to replace it. So sometimes for creative reasons, I'll do that. But for the most part, you want your histogram on the right-hand side to go all the way down before it hits the right wall.
Thank you.
Sure. So here are examples where black and white, I like to use it. If I want to work, when I've done workshops in Longwood Gardens, and I said, everybody is going to take beautiful pictures of beautiful flowers. What are we going to do that is different? I said, let's work on textures, on shapes, on tones. And black and white works really well for that. You think flowers, you shouldn't use black and white, but here it's not the colors of the flower. And think about what you see on the screen now. In a way, there is really no color in the real scene. You'll have shades of green and white, a little bit yellowish white for the brighter spots. But in black and white, I was able to increase the contrast, and really what you see are shapes, are curves, are mergers, things that I wanted to express rather than work with colors. More examples from Longwood Gardens again, play of light and shadows, patterns, and these work much nicer in black and white. And later you'll see some examples of the color version and the black and white. So these are the type of subjects that really work well in black and white rather than color. And here are some examples. So, I mean, it looks okay. It's exposed properly. It's composed, in my opinion, properly, but the color doesn't really do anything. It's all shades of green, but black and white, it gives it, it makes it more interesting, a little bit more dramatic. Of course, I added some contrast that would work well works well in black and white, it won't work so well in color. It will make it either too saturated or just not look unnatural, where in black and white, it looks fine. Look at that picture. I was just actually taking pictures of the farm behind me, and then I saw the two ladies coming on the bikes, and my wife and I also like to ride in that area. And I really love the shadows. But in the color picture, where does your eye go to? Everything is green or black, but then you have the two ladies with blue and red. Your eye goes to the wrong thing, because for me, I really wanted it for the shadows. Once I converted it to black and white, now you get what I wanted. The women actually almost disappeared in the frame, and your eye goes right to the shadows. As I said, post-processing is an important part of the conversion. So I applied some vignetting, I increased the contrast, I did do more to enhance the picture, but this is where black and white worked well for me. I didn't take this picture. My friend Sharon Edwards took it. She was my co-photographer at a wedding. And I was shooting the bride, and I saw her brother getting, just dressed with a jacket and the tie. And I said, Sharon, go take pictures of him. So she got this picture, very nice picture. It doesn't have the mood. When I looked at it, it just doesn't have the mood. When I converted it to black and white, now it really made it, in my opinion, a lot stronger image. And we gave the family both versions. But another example, I showed this little guy. He's actually a young actor, and he needed some pictures for his portfolio. And it was a rainy day, so we went to an office building, and I took the pictures there. So that's a cute picture, but again, to show a little bit, to be more expressive, I turned it to black and white, a little bit vignette, a little bit warm tone. So it's not cold black and white. It's sort of shifting a little bit towards sepia, which I like to do with many of my images. Cute picture of the baby. I do some newborn photography, but again, high key, black and white was really stronger. The color doesn't do anything. Some of you know I go bad weather, I'm out there taking pictures. I took this one, black and white, more contrast, stronger mood, more interesting picture. The color didn't do anything for the scene. This one I took in South Carolina. Sorry, this one is in Savannah in Georgia. And we were in the hotel, we were ready to leave Savannah, go back to Charleston. And I said to my wife, I heard that the fog will stay until 11, 12 o'clock. I said, let's go back to this place. I want to shoot it in the fog. And I did that. And this one actually is hanging on my wall and did pretty well in competitions. Again, because what was interesting here, it's not the colors. It's the shapes, it's the lines, it's the, and of course, the mood that we see with the fog. Another examples where lines make the picture, not the colors, much stronger in black and white. Here, the color doesn't do anything, but in black and white, you look at the shapes, you look at the highlights, you look at the sparkles. So almost any type of subject would work, but not every scene or every subject would work the way it is positioned. Again, here I like the details in the architecture. I took it obviously at night. It's in the Opera building in Vienna, but in black and white, I felt I got a stronger image. Here, your eye goes to the flag, because that's the one thing that has strong colors. The black and white, it's more about the patterns. Am I saying that the black and white is a better picture than the color? Not necessarily, but I think it's just two very different pictures just because I turn it to black and white. One, the color does make it strong, creates impact, and brings you to the flag, to a center, to an anchor point, a center of interest. But this one is more about the patterns, the play of light and shadows. So again, it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just two different pictures from the same image.
Eric,
Yes.
what type of conversion did you do on that particular shot? It looks like it might be infrared or something.
No, that's, I don't believe, no, I don't, hold on. I can't, I have to move the panel. No, it's with the D800. It's not infrared. Oh, of course not, because I had it in color. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, but when you convert to black and white, you can use, some of, I don't know, I don't want to call them filters, but
Oh, I see.
you can do portrait, landscape mode,
Yeah.
vivid, I think, infrared.
Yes, I don't always, I often start with a preset, but usually I'll move the sliders until I get the result that I want. So I can't point to any specific, and I use different ways of converting to black and white. My favorite tool is Nik Silver FX Pro. I use that simply because I created some of my own presets in it. So they're my better starting points. And I have a long list of presets there, not that I downloaded from the internet. You can get Nik presets, free presets online. So I have hundreds of presets, but
When you do use Nik, do you tend to go through like their catalog and then pick out the one that you like best?
So with Nik, there are only a number of presets that came with it. I'm still using an older version, but online, you can get hundreds of presets. So I went through really hundreds of presets for color effects, for silver effects, and for HDR effects. You can get all these free presets. So I went and checked them out and reduced the number. Otherwise, I would have hundreds of presets on my list there.
But typically, do you go through like a few of them and then pick the one that you like high structure or
I look
high contrast?
Yes, so I look at the little thumbnails and figure out which ones kind of attract me, and then I'll see why. And sometimes I may use another one, but then apply some of the sliders that I saw. So I'll mix what I want. I really, the presets are my starting point, not my end point. Again, the color doesn't, it's all about the shapes and the lines and the pattern. So I felt that I got a much stronger image in black and white. Here, when there are dramatic clouds, the color didn't do much, but black and white worked much stronger. And again, this is the type of images that work in black and white. But then there are pictures that better kept in color. I got some tulips. We had late snow last spring, so I had tulips and there was snow outside. I decided to have some fun outside. I took some pictures, then I put some in the snow, took many pictures. But this one would not work. It's all about the color. I didn't put it, it wouldn't do anything in black and white. The same thing here, it was about the colors. In black and white, regardless of the conversion, it's not going to be as strong as in color. So it's not a black and white picture. This one is about colors. I took it last fall in Ken Lockwood Gorge, and no, that's not for black and white. It would make a decent black and white picture, but that's not what attracted me to the scene. Same thing here, it's about color. Same thing here, it was the red door and the wall, not a color, not a black and white, not a black and white. Although it would be okay in black and white, but that I will lose what I really saw there, what attracted me. So again, not every picture, regardless of how good your conversion is going to be, not every picture. And I do see a lot in competitions that people put pictures that they probably loved in color, but really don't translate well to black and white. If you choose black and white, there should be a reason why you want to do it. And just because you have a good color picture, again, this one, it's the warm tones when the sun started hitting the mountain here. That's what made it. This is about the color, not for black and white. So let's look at some black and white pictures. And again, here it's about shapes, it's about the shadow, very simple scene. My local park here, I went with the dog and I saw the shadows. I always have some camera with me. Sometimes might be my phone. These are the type of, yes.
It seems to me, and I could be wrong, you don't use vignetting. Can you give me your thoughts on that? I could be mistaken, but I haven't seen any vignetting. Not that I think they should have. You know, it's all a matter of taste. But I was wondering what your thoughts are on vignetting. I can't even pronounce it.
I put them on most of my black and white pictures. Indeed, I do put them. Not here. They were on some of the previous one. Later, you'll see some where actually they say that vignetting should be there, but people should not notice it. I also see an approach where you make very strong vignetting that is absolutely noticeable. My last project was empty. Some of you saw it on my Facebook page. Was empty street at night. I went to 20 towns, small towns, and photographed from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. And there, there was very tight control over the images. I wanted them to look like they belong in a collection, in a single collection. And I actually wrote a more than 3-page project plan with some specifics on post-processing. And one of them was to do strong vignette on all the pictures. And you'll see some of them later on. So I do prefer to have vignette on pictures. But here, I don't think it would have helped. So you'll see soon. But again, these are the type of things where you have textures, you have shapes, that black and white works, the color didn't do anything for that picture. Here, and I know some people like it, some people hate it. I rarely use selective desaturation where I keep a few things in color, but here I thought that the red lights and the highlights on the train, I kept them in color. So there are a few spots with color. But again, the mood, all that was really working well in black and white. I can tell you when there was a snow like that, the original color image looked almost monochrome. This one is taken with a fisheye lens. It's the courthouse, Somerset County Courthouse. Again, it's all about shapes and patterns. To my opinion, worked well, better in black and white. Black and white. This one is one of my late night. This was taken probably close to 2 a.m. In Princeton. And again, all about the shapes and the patterns. Really looks much better in black and white. The steps in MoMA Museum, the MoMA Museum of Modern Art in New York, took me a while to wait there to have only one person on the steps. I didn't want to have multiple people. This one, I worked so carefully to compose it this way, to have the shapes and the lamp I put it in a competition. It got a 6. The judge told me to clone out the lamp, the street light. Of course, I couldn't reply, but I tried very carefully to get it into the picture because I thought it was kind of a balancing the building, the tower, and the Oculus wings.
You were right, Eric. Judge was wrong.
Yeah, you know, I've been doing it for long enough that, you know, we can all have our opinions and it doesn't matter. I don't have the fear of a judge telling me the wrong thing or something that I don't agree with. Black and white, again, work with patterns, with textures, with shapes. Princeton University, also with the fisheye. Princeton University, it's all about the patterns. I
Eric,
waited-
on that last shot, did you use a flash in there?
This one?
Yes.
No, I can't really use flash with the fisheye. It doesn't cover the angle, but I didn't need it. I do in post-processing, of course, balance the exposure. In Princeton. Here it was all about these roots. I go to that park almost daily with my dog, and I actually created a book of Duke Allen Park, a photo book, all seasons, because I go there so frequently. And that section I really like because of those roots. And again, the color didn't do anything, and black and white high contrast really made it pop. Sand dunes in Death Valley. Yes, this is Death Valley. I was in a bunch of sand dunes, wanted to make sure, not that it matters. But again, these are the types. Textures, shapes, tones work great in black and white. And even some of the cascades and waterfalls, this one is a small waterfalls, probably 6 feet tall, but I really like that where the spray hits the rock, and I was lucky to have one leaf on it. And black and white, relatively high contrast without blowing out the highlights, and I don't mind having deep shadows. So yeah, black and white works for landscape, for small landscapes, but you have to see the type of images where it's going to work. Portraits. As I said, portraits, and maybe for us old people, you know, we used to see a lot of portraits in black and white. And for me, growing up in Israel, color images were even more rare when I grew up. We had a lot of black and white and really like to look at portraits in black and white. She's an actress. She's the sister of the other kid, the actor. So I did both of them, and some in black and white. I did that couple, and I felt the stronger images were in black and white. It's really now about them. It's not about the blue door. It's not about the colors of what they were wearing. It's really now, you look at the portraits, you look at the background, it works well together. It creates a little bit more harmony. Than the color is nice too, and they love the color, but I converted a good portion of the pictures to black and white. I did that maternity shoot just last fall, and also converted some to black and white. It created a stronger mood and more interesting images. She is the sister of the other two young kids. She's not an actress. And again, black and white, made her float in the air a little bit. People ask me how hard it was to do that. And I said, very easy for me, very hard for her. you know, it takes a lot of energy to fly. We put her on a ladder. So she had to balance herself really on her butt. Think about the top of those ladders. There's not big surface at the top. And two friends actually held her until she was able to balance herself. And then I took the picture, then she got down, removed the ladder, and I took picture of the background. Then in Photoshop, I put the two layers, removing the ladder, took minutes. My grandson, this one in color didn't work. In black and white, I feel it's a much stronger picture. The music is not for me, so again, black and white for portraits often works well. My grandson, again, he's almost 2 now. The neighbors, I shot them just a couple of months in late October or early November. Again, worked really well in black and white because of the mood. There is vignetting here. Again, you may not see it, but there is slight vignetting. I created a preset for this type of pictures, and they do have, the preset does have some vignetting and a little bit sepia tone to make it warmer. Same thing here. So you can see that the face, the center is a little bit brighter than the edges, but it doesn't say, oh, this picture has a vignette. Again, more portraits. I put this picture in a competition, and it got even New Jersey Federation Interclub. It did well, did really well in our club. I belong to 3 clubs now, put it in the 3rd club, and the judge didn't realize that it's body painting, or that she's a black lady, was painted in white, and he thought that I plugged in somebody else's head. So he scored it low. He said that it was a bad Photoshop attempt to put a new head. It's not a Photoshop job. Capturing mood. Bad weather. Some of you saw that recently I put some pictures from the little snowstorm that we had last week. This one is not from last week, but black and white works great for this type of photography. So yeah, I love to shoot in bad weather. I believe I gave my bad weather program to your club at some point. And in Yosemite, I was there in a snowstorm, really made it unique. And the black and white images were just as strong as many of the color images. And again, when you have heavy snow, the scene looks monochrome already. This one I took last week, and right here, about 2-3 miles from my house, and much stronger in black and white. Again, working with shapes and textures, and the colors, it was a lot of green, but didn't really do much. Again, where the mood, you want to enhance the mood, make the picture more about the mood, black and white really works well. Even when it's just sculptures, you can create mood. And again, you can see here the vignette. This one is in the ground for sculptures, and it was a rainy day, so I really like the way the water drops were on the face. Actually, when you look at it, you may not be able to tell right away that it's sculptures. Mood in that picture. This one took quite a bit of post-processing to create the drama in the clouds without overdoing it. The fog in the foreground, I actually added by myself. I know how to fake fog. Here, I didn't fake the fog. This is a real picture. Creating the mood in black and white. It's a nice picture in color as well, just different in color. This one I took a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago in Sandy Hook there. And again, the black and white really created the mood. The color picture, just not that interesting. I did some color grading and I liked the color version that I ended up with, but the black and white was a simple conversion. Street photography is great in black and white. Again, if you look at the old street photography, a lot of it was done in black and white, but here I waited for the right person to walk, be in front of that arrow, and really having the shadows of the shadow of the tree. I waited there for a while for that picture until the right person walked by. It's in New Brunswick. The black and white created the drama. Well, I call it street photography. I shot it from the street, but it's in the Amish country. Somewhere in Indiana works. The color version looks good. I like the here because it really draws the eyes to the shapes, the patterns, and the textures. Type of pictures for black and white. Again, creating mood, creating really more nostalgic views.
Eric, can I ask a question? When you're shooting in your mind, do you know that shot's going to be black and white? Or
I can't really hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm asking, when you're shooting, do you shoot with black and white in your mind for each shot, or do you change it after you come home?
Some of them I know that I'll end up with black and white, but as I said, I always shoot in color and I convert them later in post-processing. But sometimes when I take the picture, I know that that's a black and white picture. That's going to be a black and white picture.
In most cases?
No, not in most cases, probably 30–40% of the times.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there are some that I
Eric,
know, but I won't say it. Yes.
Excuse me you used a lot of people in black and white. And I'm just curious, did you ask permission or did you just do it?
Okay, so
It's a very fine line. I know.
so I'll tell you my approach, and I have a whole program on street photography. And some tell you it must be candid, and you must not, the person must not know that you're taking the picture. Then there is the other approach, which I subscribe to, that in almost all cases, I do engage in a conversation, and at some point I ask to take the picture. And usually, and the reason why I do that, one is out of respect, but also because then it means something to me. Taking a stranger, unless it's, you know, here I did show them that they take picture, but I didn't interrupt their conversation. So I didn't really engage in a conversation. I didn't ask her because she's not the important part of the picture.
You
But-
had her permission to do this.
Which one? This one?
The girl walking on the
No,
street.
no, I did not. I did not. I did not. As I said, this one I didn't ask because it's not so much about her. By the way, from a legal point of view, you don't have to. It depends on what you use it for. I don't even ask, even though most people, I do ask them to take their pictures. I don't ask for a model release because I don't use it for any reason that requires a model release. This one,
Okay.
this one, it's in Barcelona. We didn't get into a big conversation because she didn't speak English, but I was with the camera, I showed her, and I kind of, with hand motion and stuff, I explained what I want to do. So she picked up the kitten and I took the pictures. She absolutely knew that I'm doing it. She worked with me. These kids, I absolutely asked for the permission. They were selling horseshoes. It was in Intercourse, Pennsylvania. They were selling horseshoes. I did buy one. I asked them to take a picture. I went pretty far behind, let them go back to what they were doing, and then I took the picture. And yes, it was intentional to crop it this way. So when I do take pictures of strangers, as I said, I engage with them, I give them my business card, I tell them what I'm doing, why I'm doing, I tell them why I asked them, why I want them, and it has to be somewhat flattering, but not BS. I'm not going to go to a homeless person on the street and tell him because you are so pretty. I'll tell them that I recognize what he's going through and I'd like to document it and make it, known, and I feel for him. So I'll tell them why them, because they always want to know why me. I tell them why, but in a flattering way, but honest way. And I tell them, if you want the picture, send me an email. I never ask them for their email or contact. If they want the picture, to send me an email because they have my business card. And when I do my street photography workshop, I tell people I can promise you that 9 out of 10 will agree to have the pictures taken if you do it the right way. But usually it's a much better success rate. So it does work. Now, only about 10% will follow up and ask for the picture. And when
Thank you very much.
Sure. This one definitely worked with me. He was sitting there smoking. He was on a break. And I took quite a few pictures. I was there with a couple of other friends. I was actually working with them on street photography, and we all took pictures of him, so he worked with us. I didn't ask her. She was actually behind glass. I was pretty far. I didn't ask him. He was talking to himself, really standing there talking to himself. I did ask this guy in Chinatown in Columbus Square. I did ask him, we actually talked to him. These two ladies were so much fun. They're sitting next to a takeout window in a fast food restaurant. There's nowhere on this place that says that this is a restaurant. I couldn't believe that people actually, when you look at it, that people are actually buying food there. But apparently they sit there every day. They said that a few days earlier, another person asked to take their picture. Also somebody with an accent. I did ask him. And again, I let them go back and do what they want to do. But these are kind of pictures that I love to do in black and white. I did ask him, and I was there. This is in Memphis. I was there with my dog. I had to make sure that my dog doesn't bother his dogs. He had two. He gave me the finger. So I have a picture of him giving me the finger, but then I took more. And again, with permission. We talked for a while before in Memphis.
Eric,
Yes.
You mentioned that you use silver effects.
Yes.
An older version of it. I have older version of it also, of the whole set, actually, the Nick set.
Yeah,
But somewhere along the line, I can't get it to work. Is there a secret that,
yes, yes. Are you Windows or Mac?
well, I have Windows.
Windows. So do you have an installation of one of the older computer? Do you have the,
An older-
an ins-
Oh, I have an older computer, but I don't use it.
but do you have it with Nick installed on it?
Yes, the one I'm talking through right now. It's
That's the
Windows
old
10.
one? This is the old one?
Well, no, the version I have is probably one of the original versions before they sold it. And this other company is reselling it.
Yes,
So,
DxO now it's owned by DxO and then selling. Okay, so the only trick, if you install it, it will still install, but Photoshop will not see it.
Mhm.
Under plugins, there is a folder. If you go to, we should probably do it outside of this meeting.
Okay,
You have to take that folder. And if you don't have it anymore, I still have it. It's where the plugins are for Photoshop. It's just those links. So again, I do a lot of street photography. I go on these long road trips with my dog and my cameras. And this one is in Deadwood, South Dakota. And I absolutely asked him for permission, but you see the black and white really brings out the character. There is some vignetting here. And also this one is in, I forget the name of the town in Pennsylvania. And again, the black and white with the vignette brings you right to the person. I did ask him for permission. I took a few pictures, same here. This is also in Deadwood, South Dakota. I didn't ask them. I was across the street and I just felt that there were interesting characters. I took the picture. So I'm not against doing candids, but for the most part, I do like to engage because it means more to me. I did ask her, this is in Minneapolis. And she asked me, what do you want me to do? I said, keep reading your book. And she did continue and I took pictures with her, not looking at me. Here, I was down on the ground level to be at his level. He was eating lunch and feeding the birds. It was in Cleveland. These are doing those long trips, go from town to town. I did not ask them. I shot this one right through the windshield. But again, a picture that works really well in black and white because it's all about the mood. It's all about the characters.
The dues go up, we pay, it's
Please
$2.15
mute your.
renew. And I have to do it by the end of January.
I talked to this guy for probably 20 minutes. It was 93 degrees. It was in a small town in Arkansas. I saw him sitting there. It's a one-room house. He was smoking and drinking, and I approached him. We talked. Then his neighbors came to talk to me to see what's going on. Again, black and white made it a strong image. It's okay in color, but the black and white works well. Took this one. So this is one of my, when I went to do my empty street at night, I didn't include that picture in the collection because obviously it's not empty. It's 1 a.m. in Morristown, but the bars on Thursday, they're open until 2 a.m. and the youngsters on a Thursday night are out. I did ask her and I took quite a few pictures of her. I like the way the light hit her, and obviously you can see I was on a tripod. My camera was on a tripod. The people walking, it was a relatively long shutter speed. The people walking are blurred. So again, it's very moody, works well in black and white, and it's really a play of tones and lights and shadows. Nostalgic subjects work well with black and white. And as I said, I don't object to white sky it works well. Maybe not so much on projected images, works fine on prints, especially if they're on textured paper. And again, for street photography, sometimes it's just the trees and the shapes, and that's in Charleston. Flowers. So you saw before, flowers, if they're interesting shapes, it's not about the color, it's about the shape, about play of light and shadows. I do some of the leaves with water drops, some high key magnolia flowers are my favorites because the petals have such nice curves, and the center usually also has an interesting pattern. So I do shoot magnolias every spring and try to do something different. In this case was the high key presentation with the curves. This one I called a bridal gown because it really looks, if you see, it's like the head, the shoulders, and it looks like a gown. I did add a texture to it and made it more sepia. And I made a print out of this one. Seeds, again, it's all textures and patterns and shapes. Color didn't do anything for it. The tulips that you saw earlier, once they wilted completely and the flowers didn't serve me anymore, I decided to create a series of pictures just with the curves and the textures with very shallow depth of field. And I took quite a few pictures just of the stem and the leaves of these tulips. So this is all series that I created just with really wilted flowers. But look at the shapes. It's all about the shapes and textures. And again, I like to work with very shallow depths of field. This is the top of a tulip. This is before they were completely gone. As you can see, they already started opening up. Again, here, yes, the tulip still had a color, but it was not about the color. The color distracts from the shape that I wanted to capture here. So a couple of concepts that are not just for black and white, but in general, but really are important for black and white. Concept, they may hurt you in a camera club competition with the wrong judge. And I actually learned them from painters. So it's something that painters use, and never thought of it that way. So let's start talking about edges. You know, again, judges will tell you, oh, you lost the edge here. There's a merger. There is a, you know, it's okay. We can look at hard edges like you see here, very clear edge of the petals here. We can talk about soft edges like you see here. And we can talk about lost edges. We don't see. You see the top of the building at the bottom picture, completely blended with the sky. Does it make it a bad picture? Not necessarily. These are techniques, and if you look at paintings, some painters have a lot of lost edges in their paintings. Some have soft and some, I mean, many of them have all three, but some you can tell from their style that they liked lost edges, to have mergers, that things disappear into the background. In my night photography project, I have a lot of lost edges, just as you see in the picture here. The top of the train station is pretty much, you don't see the edges. It's okay. The second one that is powerful, especially with black and white, and creates drama, is really having solid blacks and solid whites in the frame. Again, the wrong judge will tell you you lost textures, you didn't have the right dynamic range, you didn't capture it, you lost details, you lost shadow detail or highlight detail, it's okay. I told you for my night photography series, all my pick, either all or almost all of them have solid blacks because I thought it made it stronger. It created more drama, just as you can see in the picture of the train station. The project was empty street at night. It was all about mood, about play of light and shadows, and no people. So it was, I really wanted to include solid blacks. I went, after the conversion, I made sure by going to levels to see that I have the blacks on the left of the histogram go all the way to the left border. And if they didn't, I took the left slider and moved it to the right to make sure that I have solid blacks. So you can see that you can add drama, you can add mood by really having some solid shapes and also having some lost edges. This is from the night series. A lot of black, and that's okay. It really makes the center stronger. In fact, when I took the picture, the flowers on the right-hand side were lighter than that, and I burned them because I didn't want to have so much detail there. I wanted the viewer to go straight to the textures, straight to the entrance there. And I have other pictures where you see more shadows in the front.
Eric, just a quick question. Would that one before considered low key?
Yes, most of my night pictures will be considered low key, where you have a lot of black. Yeah. This
Thank
one,
you.
sure. This one, I don't know, some of you I'm sure are familiar with John Margovsky, who really talks a lot about fine art, about reading photographs, and my program on fine art photography is based a lot on what he presented. I saw in his presentation 30 years ago, and a lot of the same artists, because I used not my own pictures, some my own, but many of them were by William Eggleston and Stephen Shore and John Fall and John Meyerowitz, because I wanted to show how fine art photography is very different from what we do in camera clubs, and how if you try to judge them based on camera club criteria, they'll all get the lowest score possible. And one of the things is really analyzing the picture for what's in it, how all the elements tie to each other. And Joel did a workshop with the Staten Island Club a couple of weeks ago, and a very interactive workshop that really analyzed the pictures. And Joel was here in my house for 3 hours yesterday, and we spent time on this specific picture, really creating the story out of that picture. I told him, out of my whole collection, this was my favorite picture, simply because there are so many things that to me work here, and it works really well in black and white, because it was not about colors. It's about the table, the shadows, the strong shadows from the street light on the barn, and across the street, on the other street behind, there was the church with the steeple, and then a lot of black around it. I'm not going to go through this process of analyzing it in details, but again, that the night pictures really worked well in black and white. Here again, the mood, it was just some house in Belvedere. We were there about midnight, and I love the way there was light, a little bit light from the street on the chairs on this little deck, and the light at the entrance. So yes, I did go for some blacks, and I knew that I'm going to lose some texture around the light source, but I didn't want to compromise the exposure and make everything very dark. I wanted to be able, all my pictures from that series of shooting at night, only one picture I did HDR of 2 frames. Everything else I worked with a single capture. More from that night series. This is in, and this was the magic of shooting. This was probably done at 2:30 a.m. or something around there. I can stand, this is a pretty busy street. I can stand with a tripod in the middle of the street and take pictures. It was quite an amazing experience. I went to 20 towns. This picture during the day would be nothing. You know, in Highland Park, just a house with a store in the front, a drugstore. But at night, the textures, the mail left in the mailbox, the light in the window upstairs, and then the light in the storefront, the steps made the picture, created the mood. Works much stronger in black and white than in color, because it's all about shapes, patterns, and how they all connect. Strong colors. This is my little girl. Just sitting on the sofa, on the couch, by the window here. In the late afternoon, the sun came from the window, and I created this high contrast picture of her with a lot of blacks around.
Did you get her permission?
Yes, she works for food and belly rubs. She goes with me on all these very long road trips. So she was already in 24 states, all the way to South Carolina a couple of times, all the way to Arkansas, like a big loop, all the way to the Dakotas, Wyoming, big loop, upstate New York, Massachusetts. And she and I drive to Pittsburgh every 2 to 3 weeks.
Eric, when you went to these small towns in the middle of the night, did you have to like register at the local police station so you wouldn't get arrested?
No, no, you know what was interesting? What was interesting in Clinton, police car came, she saw us. I was, half of the towns I went with another photographer, a friend from the camera club. So in Clinton, but he didn't even, he stopped, looked at us and kept driving, didn't even ask us anything. The only place where police stopped to ask us what we are doing, but I think it was really about 2:30 a.m. And I think he was just bored. He wanted to talk to somebody. So he asked us what we're doing, if we're shooting a movie, and I told him what I'm doing. He didn't even come out of the car. The only time I was stopped and sort of investigated had nothing to do with the photography. I was driving back at 1 a.m. on 202, and there were so many deer, so I drove under the speed limit. And the police thought maybe I'm drunk, so he stopped me. Once he stopped, he asked me where I'm coming from, if I had anything to drink. I said, no, I told him what I was doing. But once he stopped me, he wanted my license and all the papers, went back to his car to check. And so it took me 20 minutes sitting there, and then he just let me go because I didn't really do anything wrong. But I was driving probably 45 to 50 in a 55 zone at 1 a.m.
Thank you.
Eric,
Yes,
would that last picture qualify as a low key?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. Infrared. I have 2 cameras converted to infrared. So black and white really works well with infrared photography. It adds to the drama. And some examples, it makes all green foliage, not green color, because you can have a bench that is green and it will be almost black in the infrared picture, but the foliage will turn bright because it reflects infrared light. During the day, I was with a friend in Maine, and we went early in the morning before sunrise to do photography. We stayed late, even did the Milky Way very late. But in the middle of the day, she wanted to go back to the hotel, to a room to take a nap. But with the infrared, actually infrared photography is better in midday. Infrared camera really works better in the middle of the day. So I went back to the park or drove around, walked around with the infrared camera during the midday to do some additional photography. Street photography with infrared. This was in Eastern Pennsylvania. And again, it enhances and works really well in black and white. This is in the Duke Farms.
Eric,
Now, one thing to watch with infrared camera, you see it looks like she's not wearing anything but underwear. Some fabrics, it sees right through. The first time I realized it, I took pictures of my wife and my dog. She was right after a bike ride. I came home and I'm putting the pictures on the computer. I said, Jen, were you wearing pants? Then I realized that if people have body paint, it sees right through it and they look like they're completely naked. I took pictures in Times Square and it looks like the girls are standing there totally naked.
Eric,
Yeah.
how do you convert a camera to infrared?
So you send it to, there are two good places to send it to. One is, and not every camera can be converted. Most SLRs or mirrorless can. You can also buy already converted. The two best places, one is here in Raritan, New Jersey, and it's called Colari Vision. And one is in the West Coast, either Oregon or Washington, I forget now, and it's called Life Pixel. I actually used Life Pixel for my conversions, but I think that today, if I had to do again, I would go to Colari Vision. They are in Raritan. Both places have really good reputation, but recently I heard from quite a few people that sent it to Colari Vision in Raritan that they are very, very pleased.
Thank you.
Eric,
Yes.
how do you compare using a converted camera as opposed to using infrared filter either in Photoshop or, for instance, in Nik?
Very, very different. And if you have 5 extra minutes when I'm done with this presentation, I'll go to another folder and show you the big difference. Okay, let me finish this one and I'll get back to you.
Sure, we could add that on with adding Nik to,
No. This one would be, I guess more people asked about it.
Sure.
Because I have a program on infrared and the first few pictures actually show what you get with infrared that you can't get with conversions, with post-processing conversions. Skin looks very smooth. This is my wife. We were on the train and we went to New York and I just took her picture. Again, great for black and white. So my workflow, there are only a couple more pictures. I do, when I come back home, I do my first pass. I don't use Lightroom. ACR is exactly the same as Lightroom, the developed modules. So I use Bridge and ACR. I don't need Lightroom to manage my files. In ACR, the first thing I do, every picture that I load is lens corrections. It's the chromatic aberration and profile corrections. There is never a reason not to click those two things. I correct distortions using the transform tool. I correct the distortions if I shoot buildings. Otherwise, it doesn't, when I shoot a flower, it doesn't make any difference. I do straightening, cropping. If the picture is noisy, I undo the sharpness and noise reduction. Because if you sharpen it early on, then it's harder to remove noise. The best way that I prefer to remove noise is using Topaz Denoise AI. So I moved the sliders under the details tab in, it's either in Lightroom or Camera Raw. I do it in Camera Raw. I move the sliders to the left, so it doesn't do any of that. I'll do it later. I adjust tones, exposure. Now, since they have the new masking tools in the most recent ACR update and Photoshop ACR update, I do some more adjustments, local tonal adjustments in Camera Raw. And then I bring it to Photoshop. The first step in Photoshop before I do anything else is reduce noise. If I need to, I apply it in, as I said, with Topaz Denoise AI. I do whatever I need to enhance the image. I save the color version, and then I convert to black and white. Sometimes just with the sliders in Photoshop, those black and whites you'll see in a minute, but more often in Nik Silver Effects Pro. And I adjust the tones, sometimes even after the conversion, although you can do it all in Silver Effects. Sometimes I'll make some final adjustments once it comes back to Photoshop. Sharpening is my last step. I sharpen selectively. So if I have, like the picture you see in front of you, I'm not going to sharpen the background. It's already soft intentionally. Why do I want to create grain in it? I don't want to sharpen it and create artifacts. So I'll sharpen with a different layer with a mask and only reveal the sharpening in the areas that I want to do. And then I save the black and white version. Any questions on that? So that's the slideshow. I wanted to show something in Photoshop very quickly. And so this picture, again, it's one of those pictures that I would never bring to a competition, but it's a very strong picture that tells a story. Obviously, it means more to me because I was at my daughter's house in Pittsburgh. As I say, I go there every couple of weeks. And I don't know where my wife was, but she wasn't here with us. And then my daughter, my grandson fell asleep on the couch. My dog fell asleep on the couch, and her cat and I were the only ones awake. I took the picture. I had a lot of post-processing to do here because the only light in the room was from the lamp right above my daughter here. So I had to make a lot of adjustments, but intentionally to tell the story, I kept all the junk on the table. And again, it's a picture that tells a story, but it's not a camera club type picture. Okay, let me, do you see my screen?
Do you drive to Pittsburgh?
Yes, I drive to Pittsburgh.
How long does that take?
5 hours. If there is if there are no accidents or major constructions, it takes me 5 hours. 337 miles each way.
Oh,
And my wife is there for almost 2 years, since before the baby was born, and she's there helping. And I go there every couple of weeks.
oh, thank you, because we have friends there, and I would never think to drive.
Yeah, it's a long ride, but it's a nice ride. It's actually a pretty route. I don't mind it. So I took a picture. I did the engagement shoot of my son and now my daughter-in-law, and I took them here. And when you look at those cubes behind them, so if I just clicked on black and white conversion, and I see that so much in competitions, that people will put a picture like that. It doesn't look too bad, but you know, you're missing the main thing in the picture. Look what happens when I start selecting, moving the sliders. Do you see the heart now? So it's really important. And if I wanted to make the heart black, I can make it black. And now so using the sliders, making selective adjustments is very critical. If I take down, now sometimes you have to do some masking because yes, the adjustment that I'm making to see the heart in the background are not necessarily making the faces look great. So I do work with masks, but it's really important to make the conversions, to control your conversions to black and white. As I said, my preferred tool is Silver FX Pro. And when I talked earlier about presets, as you can see, these are the presets that come with the software. So the presets are really managing all these sliders that you see on the right-hand side. So I can pick a preset. Do I like this one? No, I don't like this one. Do I like this one? No, I don't like this one, but I can still pick a preset and you see I can still change the conversions. I can still have full control over all the sliders. The preset just set a certain combination of sliders for me, but I can still do whatever.
We can watch the 9 o'clock show. We can watch the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock.
Okay, Diana put, no, it's not her. It's Art. Art, could you please mute it? So, and as I mentioned, you can find dozens and dozens of presets online. So I downloaded and selected the ones that I like. So you see on the left-hand side, lots and lots of presets that I can use. And again, presets are starting points, not necessarily endpoints. But also I created my own presets that I like. So you see one click and I got close to what I wanted, and then I can start making some adjustments. So, and they do add some vignette, not a strong one, but that's my preferred way of working with black and white. But as I mentioned, not every picture works well, converts well to black and white. So if I take another picture from the same shoot, this one, there's nothing that I can do to make it look good in black and white. The scene is busy, her dress is green, there's a lot of green in the background, different shades of green. If I try to convert this one to black and white, it's just not going. I need to move you guys, the panel with all of you. Okay, I moved it. So it just doesn't work. It doesn't matter what I'll do with the sliders. I can make it a little better, but this is not a picture that lends itself to black and white photography. So you do have to be selective with what you choose to convert to black and white. Any questions? Okay, do you want me to take 5 minutes for the infrared? If not, we'll do it in a different time, different place.
I have a question about Nick.
Yes.
I had Nick, that free one, and we go to this photography meetup and they said, oh, you must delete the Nick. Why, I don't know, but I deleted it and I could kick myself because I loved it. So quick question, what, do I have to buy it now to put?
Oh, do you want to record? Okay. Okay. So look at the pictures here. When I took the same pictures with two cameras, a standard camera and an infrared camera. And what you can see with the standard camera, you see how the sign is green and the grass is green, but with the infrared, the sign, the green became black, but the grass became white. A filter built into the post-processing filters don't know the difference. They go by green. The other thing with infrared, if you look at the middle picture or the one on the right, you'll see that the infrared, really midday flat light, it will penetrate and see details where the standard camera, it looks all black. Look at the leaves in the top picture that I converted to black and white with the standard camera, and the one below. You can see right inside the shaded areas. That's why black and infrared works well in midday. Look at the pictures on the right. At the top, the shaded sides, that's why we don't like to shoot midday, because we get those shaded areas that turn completely black because everything else is much lighter. The infrared really gets you in. Look at the picture here. I took it, this one is with the standard camera. Look at the trees. You don't see anything inside there. The same time, just exactly the same time, I took a picture with the infrared. Look at all the details that you see in what was hidden in the regular picture. Look, in the center here, it all looks like flat gray, where here you see all these nice details. So infrared, real infrared really makes, it really brings a lot of things. Look, that thing here, you couldn't even see in the black and white, in the standard picture. And here you see it. Let me see if there are any other pictures like that that really show very nice penetration and beautiful detail. Yeah, anyway, so a lot of these pictures are taken this midday, and it looks really good in infrared, where with a standard camera will not look great. Also, the way it brings out the clouds midday. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not doing my infrared program now, but yeah, I mentioned this is what it does with body painting. This is in New York, in Times Square. Okay. Any?
Eric,
Yes.
when you were telling some of the adventures you had with some judges and giving you sixes on some of your beautiful pictures, reminded of one that we did not that long ago. We had the idea of adding color or desaturating, and we actually had a competition that was black and white with one color. So we had some workshops before it and taught everybody how to do it. So when it came time to the competition, several people put in pictures that had one color element.
Oh,
Unfortunately, the judge didn't like that technique.
that was
and-
Eric.
No.
No.
No, it wasn't. But he
Name, no, we will not, but it was definitely not Aaron.
But he made it clear that he doesn't like those and proceeded to bang out everyone that entered one with a color with the
That's not-
comment, oh, here's another one, 6, and
That's
just
not
went through the whole
fair.
roll.
No,
Yeah,
no.
first, if I came and you told me that this was the assignment, I would not say I don't like it.
Oh, what he objected to, Rich, was that so many of us chose to use red as the one color in the photo. And he saw photo after photo that had red, and that's what made him see red, so to speak. I'd say I agree with him, I didn't, but that was his beef.
You know, it's funny because I had a couple of pictures that had a single color. One I kept with the train and the lights, But I had another one that I took in Pittsburgh, and there were a pair of sneakers hanging off a telephone wire or one of the wires, and they were blue sneakers, and I kept them in blue. So I sometimes use the technique. It's not something I use frequently, but sometimes I do use it. So I would not be against it. Sometimes people use it like anything other creative. Some people maybe carry it in a way that I don't appreciate, but I definitely didn't judge that. It's fun because one of the things, a book that if you have now in winter, you don't go out and you have spare time to read, a book that I strongly recommend will not teach you anything about photography techniques, but will teach you a lot about the philosophy and how to create, how to become more creative, and how is by a landscape photographer, but it applies to anything. So the photographer is Guy Tal, and he has a regular column now in Lenswork magazine. And Brooks Jensen, the publisher of Lenswork, actually recently interviewed him. But Guy Tal published recently a book called Another Day Not Wasted. And he really talks about creativity. You know, people say, oh, I'm not creative, or I like to take the picture that shows reality. And he talks about being an artist and being, and he's a nature photographer for the most part. So he's not, but he does manipulate his pictures. He's an artist. But he said the three things that prohibit photographers from becoming creative. The first one is being lazy. It's much easier to photograph, to do what's done before, what the public recognizes, what you know that people will like. So the first thing is being lazy. You want to just do what's easy. I know we bring that picture of a eagle holding a fish. You know, we know judges will like it. We know it will score high. It's easy to go that way. Or it could be a rusting lock on a barn door. The standard things that are frequent. So one is being lazy, not experimenting, not trying to do something that is different. The second one, which is a big problem, especially in camera clubs, is conformity. Conformity to rules. You know, we all want to follow those PSA type rules. And you know what? You're not going to be creative. If you're going to always follow the rule of thirds and always not have solid blacks or solid whites, and always have a single subject and nothing else distracting, and always, you know what, if you want to create, look at the work of Stephen Shore, look at the work of, you know, we can name many.
Eric,
Yes.
I've found through my experience with judges, a lot of them stick to, well, this is not, you know, this is not what you're supposed to do. They have these rules, and if you don't go by their rules, they give you a 6.
Correct. And you know, like the picture that I took in New York and the light, that was an important element for me. And you know, and this is why the exercise with Joel Margowski was, okay, you go and identify, you actually write down, you look at your picture and write down every object in that picture. Then after you do that, you start figuring out the relationships. And then how the emotion, what it makes, how it makes you feel having those. And once you build them all up, then you say, yes, they do belong together, or no, something doesn't belong there. But it's really a process of, now, a judge that looks at a picture for 5 seconds, 10 seconds on the screen in a competition, they cannot go through that process because they don't have the time. And usually for fine art, you need more than one picture and maybe more than a one-line title to really help with the story. But regardless, I sometimes go crazy because judges in Camera Club judges, they score technique and composition. They don't look at visual impact. They don't look at the story. They don't look at content. It's almost the content doesn't matter. You'll take a really good picture of a coin, of a quarter. It will score high because the judge can't find anything to tell you how to do it better. Because you have the light right, the exposure right, no reflections, all that. But come on, it's a coin. What are you telling me? What are you showing me? Where pictures, you do street photography, you rarely get a perfect picture in a street photography, yet they have impact. That's why in my program on fine art, I have pictures from Rudy Roy. He's a young photographer, but he did a lot of street photography and went into clubs. I don't mean camera clubs. He went into nightclubs in Jamaica or in Texas and took pictures inside and took with flash or with some really bad lighting, but pictures that tell stories, that have impact, that show expressions.
Mhm.
A judge will immediately go for, because of the flash, the woman who was sweating had glare on her forehead, or there was all kind of lights in the background, or bottles of water or soda. Yes, they tell stories. They're not perfect from a camera club standards.
Mhm.
So, for 6 years, I stopped competing. This year, I hardly compete. I competed again for the last 3 years because I joined a new club and asked to be straight in the salon and had to prove that I belong there. But
I found that I won't compete unless the judge will take a bribe and give me a good score.
you know what? The one thing is, I still say, yeah, there are many judges that I don't necessarily appreciate their style of judging, but it's always good to hear somebody else's opinion. Whether you accept it or not, it doesn't matter. You want to hear, I want to hear somebody else's opinion. And Facebook is not the right place to get you'll get likes, I get hundreds of likes, so on. But it's really, by the way, the third, so I mentioned laziness and then conformity that are really they block creativity. And the third one is fear of being rejected. And that's why I stopped going to participating in competitions for 6 years. It was a number of years ago, because I wanted to do more street photography. I wanted to develop some style, some way of creating images that is not driven by NJFCC or PSA aesthetic standards, which are good for beginners, because for beginners, it really creates some discipline. And once you know the rules, well, I say once you know the rules, you know where and how to break the rules. But I also like another book that I thought was really, really good that I read a few months ago is by David Duchamine. And the book is called The Soul of the Camera. The book says nothing about cameras, but it's all about the soul and how to create, again, creative, good images. How to be an artist photographer, not just what he calls Me Too. In camera clubs, we see a lot of Me Too photographs. Yeah, I went to that park, to that exotic place, and I also got that picture, and mine is even better. And it could be flowers, it could be animals. I mean, how many are going to the dam in Maryland now, taking the
Eagles.
eagles catching the fish? All the pictures look the same. So yes, I would love to see it, but you know, I went to Sandy Hook the other week and I enjoyed looking at the seals, but you know, it's not my thing to go and photograph seals, yet another picture of seals. But anyway, Badushmin says, in one of his quotes there, I'm not saying that you should break the rules. I am saying that there are no rules to begin with, because if you want to be creative, you should create your personal set of aesthetics rules and style, and say you don't have to think, okay, what's my style going to be? Once you create your photography and you start doing your things that you love and you respect your results, your style will come as a byproduct. Don't try what's my style going to be. That's not the way you go about it. So again, these are two books that don't teach you any techniques, but I really took a lot of notes from the David Dushman's book. I heard him in a podcast, in an interview, and I say, I really love what this guy is saying. I need to buy his book. I bought his book and I really thought it was very powerful, very important asset. And I just on Sunday, I bought the Guy Tal book on Another Day Not Wasted. Also was highly recommended. I bought it. I'm on chapter 7, so I'm still less than halfway through, but I'm already pretty impressed.
Eric.
I have a question.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Rich, you go then.
Okay. You just very eloquently explained something that we all experience, but maybe don't completely understand and comprehend, that we'll be going through a whole session and judges will be banging us out with, oh, the edge of that leaf touches the edge of the frame, or there's a touch blown out here and you get knocked down. And then a picture will come up that's got all these technical flaws, but the judge will look at it and say, I like it, 9. And which is what you just explained to us, that there's more to it than all the concrete rules in black and white. Not necessarily black and white, but just all the rules that they should be following. And here they break them all because they like the picture.
And that's okay. You see, so when I judge, I often say, don't try, because I see it, I'm on the board of 2 camera clubs, the Somerset County Photography Club and the Morris Photocolor Club. So I get we do the surveys after each meeting, and I get the comments, and especially in the Morris Club, we get a lot of comments from the members. I mean, because we do it electronically, not on paper, people write a lot. And almost after every competition, somebody or a couple of people will say, the scores didn't match the comments. And I don't necessarily see it as a negative, because when I look, and usually I'll explain it because I don't want people to say the same about me. But as I said, you can take a picture that really has no merit. Why take it in the first place? But there is nothing to correct there. Everything is done perfectly. It just, the picture has no message. There is no visual impact of, abstract doesn't have a story, but it has, it should have some impact. So it's not always about a story, but there needs to be some merit to the picture why you took it in the first place. And sometimes judges will give 9s to pictures that are meaningless, but they can't find anything wrong with it. And I would say in a competition, the picture is rendered very well. I just don't think that it rises to the level of a competition picture. It doesn't draw me into it, so I'll explain it when I judge, but some judges will just
Mhm.
give it a low score, give it a low score or a high score. At the same time, sometimes I'll see a picture like a street photography, and I don't want people to think that I ignore the flaws. I'll mention them, but I'll say, but the picture it tells a story, it has impact, and I may give it maybe not a 9, maybe an 8. So usually I'll try to explain it, but I definitely look first for the merit in the picture, and then I'll look at technical aspects. And if there is an excuse for it, you see, if you do a still life picture and technically it's not perfect, there's really no excuse because you have full control of lighting, of the setup, of everything. But you do street photography, you do sometimes even wildlife. You know, if the picture tells a strong story and is not perfect, it may be okay. Again, remember, the judges don't have a lot of time, but also a lot of the judges follow. So I had arguments with at least a couple of judges, not when they judge my picture, but just because we like to talk. And they feel that if you don't focus on the technique and composition, then you are subjective. And you know what? It's okay to be subjective as long as you're consistent. Now, I try to be more objective, and if you show me, I don't shoot birds, okay? It's not my interest. I give 9s to pictures of birds. Yeah, if you show a very sharp portrait of a pretty bird, it's not going to be a 9 with me because I don't see you as a photographer did anything special with that bird. But if you show me a bird with, you know, soft wings because of motion and something that looks interesting, it may get a 9, even if it's not technically perfect. So I do look for what the photographer did to be creative, to do something